Greetings! Hope everyone's doing well today. The topic for this video is, are you working harder than your client? Now, if you've been any kind of therapist, coach, healer for more than, a year or two, you'll know that sometimes you get clients who come in that tell you they really want to change, but every time you try to help them and assist them in changing their lives, giving them directives that can help, sometimes they'll come back and they haven't done anything, or they'll almost be a kind of an obstructionist to the therapy process as far as you giving them things and homework to do to make their lives better. I had a situation like this a few months back, and I actually called a trusted colleague of mine, and she made the comment, which kind of spurred my thinking a little more, kind of brought me back to where I needed to be. Is she says, "Sounds like you're working harder than your client." And when the therapist coach is working harder than their client, something's wrong. And something was wrong, because my desire to help this client was so great that I figured that I had to, do more and more, because this particular person just didn't seem to follow through on anything. And it was kind of making me very exasperated. I still wanted to be helpful, but then I started feeling like the client was being resistant. And I remember a quote that's been attributed to Milton Erickson, where he said that it's not so much client resistance, but therapist lack of flexibility. So her comment, my friend's supervisional comment, was that I was working harder than she was. So when I returned back to the session, I decided to employ a little strategy. It's a bit of a paradox, but it really helped, and maybe this will help you. So anytime that you get into a struggle with a client, like they haven't followed through on some of the directives that you've hoped that they would do, or they're just not doing their homework. What I used to do was, and maybe you've done this, you get into this kind of back and forth, sometimes to be, a little confrontational. You try to search for secondary gain. Okay, what are you getting out of not doing it? And then you go down this whole rabbit hole of psychological reasons why the person wasn't following through on their directives. So I just decided that maybe they know better than me. So when I would give a directive, a suggestion, and I said, well, let's try this, and the client would agree to it, and then a week or two they'd come back, and then we follow up. Well, did you complete that exercise? And the client would say, no, I didn't. I just didn't do it. Now I kind of say, so you just decided not to do it? And they'll kind of look at me expecting like we're going to have some kind of back and forth. She says, well, yeah, and try to give me a little excuse why they didn't. And then I will say, and it's been working so far, that's really great that you have the insight about yourself to know what'll work for you and what won't. And they're not used to hearing that. So it's really great that you decided not to do that, because maybe you know better than I do about what works for you. Maybe a part of you knew that wasn't the right exercise for you. Maybe you're not ready yet, and that's okay. You'll know when you're ready. Now, what this ends up doing paradoxically is it's actually rewarding the client on some level, because a lot of times when clients don't follow their directives, or suggestions, or homework, a lot of times it's because they kind of expect us to save them. I've even had a client come, well, that's why I'm coming to you, not for me to do something, you to change me. And that's not how good therapy, coaching, and healing works. There's got to be an active part of the participant. So what I just do is congratulate them on having the self-assuredness to know what works for them. Because whether they've decided to do the task or not, they've still made a choice. And as they make that choice, they're exerting actually more control over their lives. So if they feel totally totally out of control with their lives, this little act of, deciding not to, and then us saying, hey, that was probably a good idea. And I really admire that you knew what was right for you, and to not push it. Now, this initially may seem a little strange, but here's the follow-up. With this one particular client, after 2 sessions of this, where I would give a little bit of homework and they'd come back and not do it, and I would congratulate them. Well, maybe this wasn't the right time for this, or maybe, you knew best that this might not be the right exercise for you. Some weird things started happening is that this client started to it's like they went backwards to some of the early directives and suggestions I made, and they started doing them then. So rather, when they came out and said, well, I decided to start, walking for, 20 minutes every other day, instead of me going like, well, I brought that up about a month ago or 2 months ago, or why did you finally follow my directive? I take myself totally out of it. I say, really? What motivated you to do that? That's great. I kind of feel a lot of times people, when they say they're out of control, it's that they're actually trying to exert too much control. So they create this illusion that they're totally out of control when they're trying to do too much. And the flip side is when they feel they're trying to do too much control, they're really out of control. So when you give them a little control without telling them that you're giving them control, it kind of feeds that paradox. So instead, again, of fighting them, why not just congratulate them? All right, obviously, if the directives are things that are for their health and safety, we do need to maybe be a little more directive about ensuring that those are met. But in little things like writing down all your negative thoughts and disputing them, or whatever exercise you give, if they decide not to do it, just say, okay. Well, and maybe that's something that you want to do later or not. So you always give them the option, because either way, they've made a choice. And to me, isn't that what part of therapy is about, is returning choice to the individual so that he or she feels that they are the ones who are choosing to direct their lives the way they want. But if we get into a back and forth, we end up kind of indirectly challenging that and taking the power away from them, which is probably not a good idea. So it's also easier. So don't work harder than your client. I hope this was helpful today, and let me know if you run into a similar situation. Leave your comments, and please subscribe if you find value in these videos. Take care.